let's see if that is going. Looks like we're good to go. Alrighty, give me just 1 second here. Alrighty, let's see if that is going. There we go. Okay. Alrighty, everybody. It's Coach Mark here. Go ahead and dive in just a second. I'm just going to give this a moment to stabilize. So today's live, what I'm going to be doing is talking a little bit about the back end of my current deadlift program I've been running. If you've been following me on Instagram, I came up with a deadlift base building program called Batilad 305. Batilad is a Filipino term which means to expose oneself to the challenge. And my challenge is chasing down a 305 kilo deadlift, which is roughly 675 on the bar. And the idea was initially it was going to be a triphasic program consisting of 3-4 week blocks, eccentric emphasis, isometric emphasis, and then concentric emphasis. So what that looked like, for example, phase 1 was a snatch grip deficit deadlift with slow eccentrics. And you can see I have it programmed out here. Week 1 was a triple at 70%, 2x5 at 60%, 4x5 at 50%, so on and so forth for weeks 2, 3, and 4. Pretty basic operation there. One of the big approaches with this was using a mechanical progression coupled with triphasic, and the idea was using variations that would more specifically exaggerate the physical quality I was trying to focus in on. So for example, a snatch grip deficit deadlift, because of the extreme range of motion, it allowed for a lot of time under tension in the eccentric. I had a long way to go to get that bar all the way back to the floor. And then moving into the second phase, it was a paused deficit deadlift. And I have the loading right there, a couple triples at 75, a couple triples at 70%, set of 5 at 65%, so on and so forth. And this was paused at the concentric. So break the ground, pause roughly mid-shin, and then finish the rep. They're freaking horrible, by the way. So I'm actually, I wrapped up week 7, so this week ahead is going to be 3 doubles at 85%, which is 545 pounds roughly. And, based off how it moved last week, I'll get it. It's not going to be fun, but I'll get it. So the idea here is the triphasic approach just helps you build, a wide base of strength and overall capability. And then in writing this program, kind of along the way, I came up with the idea of tetraphasic training, where we looked at the concentric emphasis block as having 2 separate elements, a strength speed element and then a true grinding strength element, right? So then potentially it takes Batilad 305, which was originally a 12-week program, and could make it into a 16-week program if you wanted to go from triphasic to tetraphasic. But I thought I'd share both options here and kind of just talk about them a little bit. So the first one is the true triphasic block. So then, for example, after I finish up next week's pause deficit deads, the next 4 weeks, I'd hit a triple from the floor, regular deadlift now, at 85%, 4 triples at 70%, a double at 90%, 3 triples at 75%, and then week 3, a single at 95%, 3 dubs at 80%, and then I go for a new 1 RM. It's a pretty basic standard peak right there, and honestly, I think for most folks, this would be great. And then the idea with the tetraphasic block was I'd have 4 weeks of acceleration focus, and I'd also pair this not only just block pulls, but I would add in accommodating resistance on the back offsets just to help me with my acceleration. Now there's this idea that block pulls are for lockout. That personally has not been what I've noticed with my lifters. What I've found is block pulls are actually really good for floor speed. And the reason why is you're using short blocks, right? 2 to 3 inch blocks. It's going to put you roughly mid-shin where you lose your leg drive. Because once you get that initial break off the floor, it's a matter of retaining acceleration through that mid-range, and that's where the block pull comes in really handy because, again, you can't exploit leg drive as much. So that's why I think it makes a lot of sense for a speed strength-oriented phase. Also, look into Andy Bolton. He was a really big proponent of the block pull for improving floor speed. So what that might look like is week 1 to be a couple doubles at 80%, then a couple doubles at 82.5% in week 2, a couple doubles at 85% in week 3, and then week 4, I'd hit a heavy single on the block pull. And then after the relevant top sets, we'd do some back off sets. And what we'd do here is they'd still be block pulls, or you could even do them off the floor if you really felt that you needed more time off the floor. I don't think it matters that much, truth be told. It's something worth considering. Because when you think about banded deads, they have, how do I phrase this? They're going to hit you, especially in the mid-range, to lock out. but they also cue a violent acceleration. So, you could do floor pulls or block pulls into floor pulls, which is, again, what Andy Bolton did. But I personally would probably just stick to block pulls throughout and then just adding in the accommodating resistance. And when I add accommodating resistance, I'm only talking about 45 pounds or so of band tension. So that's just standing on one of those Orange Elite FTS bands, for examples. I'm not using a lot of accommodating resistance. I want just enough to force myself to accelerate, but I'm not trying to overload my lockout phase. I already got plenty of hard work on my lockout phase from all the deficit work I've done. And yes, deficits are amazing for lockout, just like the close grip bench is amazing for your lockout on the bench press because you have a longer stroke, right? So that's something to consider there. But anyways, so then for the first 4 weeks, I do the block pulls and then some back offsets of banded block pulls just to help cue acceleration. And then I move into the floor pull block there, making it 16 total weeks. Personally, I'm probably going to run this tetraphasic because I know for me also, block pulls I'm weak on. So I think a little time there is going to benefit me. And I have put in my dues with the past 8 weeks of these elevated pulls. Those 3-inch deficit pause deads, those 3-inch deficit snatch grip eccentric deads, miserable. Pause deficits suck. But you can see the rationale here between triphasic and tetraphasic. Both simply help you build the overall capability of your deadlift. One is just going to allow you to take a little time to focus more on your starting strength, whereas the other allows you to move into a realization phase a little bit sooner and exploit that strength. I think both are highly valid. Like I said, I think for the average person, they're probably better off just running a triphasic. But I did want to share an example of a tetraphasic approach just because it's something I had talked about last week on the YouTube channel, and it seemed like y'all were kind of intrigued by it. But anyways, that's really about it. Hope y'all are having a good one. I'm going to go ahead and wrap this stream up. Have a great rest of your Sunday. Let the